My daughter-in-law shocked me by cutting my hair. My son exposed the truth I never knew. Sally leaned in closer to the mirror, her long silver hair cascading over her shoulders like a waterfall of memories. Each strand spoke of her decades in the classroom, nurturing young minds while ensuring the legacy of her family lived on. But as she gently combed through her locks, dread clawed at her insides. The annual family reunion loomed, and the pressure to present herself perfectly was suffocating. She felt it every year, the weight behind the smiles, the need to show her family just how much they meant to her. But this year was different. Memories flooded back. Her daughter-in-law, Jenna, always with her scissors, casually snipping away as if it was nothing. Hadn't she noticed? Sally squinted at her reflection. Jenna's furtive trims had transformed her once majestic hair into something she hardly recognized. It wasn't styled. It was thinned out and ragged. The curls she once cherished felt more like remnants, and with each passing moment, her appreciation for the past twisted into anxiety. What if her family didn't see her as she wanted them to? What if her hair, her very identity, was a stark reminder of the years gone by, the wishes and dreams submerged beneath banal scissors? Unbeknownst to Sally, Jenna had believed she was caring for her in her own way, but care felt like betrayal now. How could she have allowed this? Running fingers through her now frayed locks, she bit her lip, stifling despair. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air grew heavier as Sally overheard Mark speaking quietly to Jenna in the other room. His voice steady, hers soft. Fueling her unease, she felt invisible, an outsider in her own home, the feeling twisting painfully in her gut. Why couldn't he see the toll this was taking? Didn't they understand? Was it so wrong to want to hold on to who she once was? Finally, her resolve shattered. With trembling hands and a quivering voice, she confronted Jenna. "You've cut not just my hair, but my spirit," she managed, the words barely escaping her throat. The festivities surrounding them dulled, laughter falling silent like a sudden storm. Sally's heart raced as Jenna's expression shifted from shock to something resembling remorse. In that heated moment, Mark stood between them, torn and unsure. The more they spoke, the stronger Sally's longing to be understood became. Doubt gnawed at her, and suddenly she wished to uncover the hidden truths of their lives, the connection she was starving for. But then, a revelation cracked through the tension. A hidden letter offering a glimpse of freedom and resilience from her late mother-in-law. The realization struck. Perhaps Jenna's independence mirrored the spirit Sally had cherished in her own family. Caught in the collision of her past and present, Sally hovered on the brink of an emotional precipice. Her heart pounded with urgency. The moment for understanding slipped through her fingers like loose strands of hair. Just then, a voice broke into her thoughts, firm and deliberate. "Mom, it's time we talk about what we value." All at once, she felt the weight of truths yet unspoken, the swirling storm threatening to pull her under. Would she embrace the shift that awaited her, or allow herself to be held captive by her fears? Sally took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment, desperate to reclaim her narrative. Mark's voice reverberated in her mind, hanging in the air like a beacon. It was painfully clear that this confrontation was inevitable. She needed to delve deeper, not just into how she felt about her hair, but why it misaligned with her identity and familial bond. "Jenna, it's not just about the hair," she began, her tone steadier now, eyes locking with her daughter-in-law's. "It's about the choices I feel I've lost, my choices." Stirring in her thoughts was the identity that felt slowly chipped away. The force that compelled Jenna to snip at her hair was the same force that had swept across Sally's life, an erosion of self that started subtly but had now engulfed her whole. For a moment, Jenna appeared to reflect, a flicker of understanding passing over her face. "I just thought," she started, but Sally charged forward, not allowing the excuse to take seed. "No, Jenna. You've made decisions for me that I didn't ask for. Decisions that reflect your desires, not mine. I feel like a ghost in my own home." Each word struck like a hammer, crafting the shape of her vulnerability. She could see Mark's hesitant expression, wrestling with his loyalty and desire to keep peace within their household. Jenna's eyes softened as she processed Sally's words. "I wanted to help you, to make it easier for you. I thought shorter hair might be simpler and more modern." But the tension in Sally's chest only tightened. "That's just it. You see me as someone who needs help, rather than someone who needs to be respected as I am." The realization struck Sally sharply. Her hair had come to symbolize her autonomy, a route to expressing her story in a world that increasingly tried to strip her of it. The gears of transformation began to lean into motion within her. She had shied away from confrontation all her life, from advocating for her viewpoints. Yet, here was the precipice. The escalation of conflict was going to serve as the catalyst for change. What freedom awaited her if she stepped into this place of discomfort? Gathering momentum, Sally decided to expand her plea. "I've left so much of myself back in those years. I tried to be the perfect mom and teacher. I neglected nurturing my own dreams. And if I'm going to show my family who I really am, I need everyone to understand where I'm coming from." The dynamics of her identity were coiled tighter than her personal ambitions. Jenna looked visibly shaken, but the resolve on her face bore witness to a woman questioning her own autonomy too. "I didn't realize I was imposing. How can we both express ourselves clearly?" she murmured, vulnerable and open to change. Eager to seize this moment of connection, Sally felt her heart race. Perhaps they would both emerge from this confrontation transformed. "Let's start with our stories. What led us here? It's time we both stop hiding and embrace who we truly are." Each word felt charged, lifting her from the emotional storm shelter she had sought refuge in. As they began their tentative exchange of stories, the air in the room lightened, each voice filling the gaps, stitching the remnants of their connection. For the first time in what felt like ages, Sally felt a flicker of empowerment igniting within. Yet she knew this was merely the beginning. Their revelations had opened new, raw avenues of understanding. But as uncertainties still loomed large, an unshakable thought lingered in her mind. What other truths lay buried, waiting to be uncovered? Sally could feel the fullness of the approaching family reunion, the array of eyes that would soon rest upon her, questions, judgments, expectations bound tight. Would they recognize the woman she intended to be, or, after all this, would they remain ensnared in the illusions she had built around herself? The need to unravel this deeper layer of identity pounded insistently within her as the door swung wide open for further revelations. Could she truly exhibit her newfound strength, or would her fears hold her captive yet again? Sally's breath hitched in her throat as the weight of revelation settled heavily on her shoulders. There was a palpable clarity in her mind as she sifted through the strands of her identity. This conversation with Jenna had breathed fresh air into her stagnant self-image, but the imminent reunion loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash doubts she could scarcely contain. In the silence that followed their exchange, a flicker of determination ignited within her, urging her to pursue her truth with fearless tenacity. She couldn't allow the ghosts of other people's perceptions to dictate who she could be any longer. But the path ahead felt daunting. How could she navigate the coming gatherings where opinions would undoubtedly clash with her new resolve? A plan began to form, one that involved more than verbal exchanges. Sally needed to embody the change she sought to express. She wanted to untangle her reliance on approval, a trait marching back to a childhood where her voice often went unheard. What if she invited her family to participate in her transformation instead of merely observing it? Her mind conjured images of a family mural, a whimsical project involving every member where they could each leave their mark, expressing their individual stories and emotions. Painting would illustrate the themes of their struggles, triumphs, and desires, their true selves. Sally envisioned it as a space where her family could witness and celebrate one another's authenticity, including her own. "Jenna," she said softly, her resolve deepening like roots taking hold. "What if we merge our stories into something tangible, something that goes beyond words? I've been thinking about creating a mural, a family project. Each of us could contribute something that represents who we are. It's not just about me. I want everyone to express themselves." Jenna's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she considered the idea, her earlier hesitations melting away in the face of shared creativity. "That sounds amazing, but how do we even begin?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, filled with tentative excitement. Sally felt a surge of strength at the prospect of communal expression. "Let's start with what defines us. We can collect items or images that symbolize each person. Maybe it starts with color. What hue embodies you?" The discussions would not just unravel her own layers, but they would offer Jenna, and eventually Mark, the chance to reflect on their paths too. As they sketched out the framework of the mural, Sally felt a warmth spreading through her chest. It had been years since she fostered such enthusiasm, and the realization struck that she had the power to shape her narrative. The exploration brought forward what she feared most: vulnerability. But vulnerability, she reminded herself, is where growth thrives. The clock ticked forward menacingly, yet for Sally, time felt fluid in that moment, stretching into a zone of hopeful anticipation. She caught glimpses of her potential gains with each brush stroke they would paint together. However, that shadow of doubt lingered. What if her family, once immersed in this expression of self-ownership, rebuffed her brave new intentions? Would they anarchically reintroduce the walls she'd spent years dismantling? Or would the mural, a symbol of their intertwined tales, be the very thing that illuminated their own hesitations with authentic light? The possibilities swirled in her mind, just as a memory washed over her of the childhood storytelling sessions, where dreams awakened the wildest imaginings. What if that same spirit guided her now? Empowered by purpose, she inhaled deeply, her jaw set. She would face the uncertainty, all of it. But there was no turning back now. Amidst the pursuit of artistry, Sally sensed a new obstacle on the horizon: Mark. While he had mostly remained a supportive figure in these discussions, she couldn't shake the nagging sense that he harbored doubts too. What if he did not see the merit in her transformation? Would he dismiss the mural as mere whimsy, as something that belonged solely to the past? With that thought rising ominously within, Sally resolved she would have to confront Mark before the family reunion, laying bare her intention not just for the mural, but for her very self. Could she craft a space where he would support her growth, rather than retreat under the strain of change? The next wave of intensity rushed through her as she braced for the meeting with Mark, nerves coiling in her stomach like tightly wound springs. How would he respond when she challenged the notions he had carried alongside her? The confrontation wasn't just imminent, it was necessary. She was ready to forge her path forward, but would Mark join her? Or would he pull her back into a past that threatened to ensnare her again? Sally paced the living room, her heart racing at the prospect of speaking with Mark. Each step echoed the weight of her intentions. How long had she nestled safely within the cocoon of expectation, suppressing her desires because they threatened the status quo? But this time, she was ready to crack open that cocoon. Rubbing her palms together to find composure, she rehearsed the key points in her mind. This wouldn't be a mere discussion. It was a declaration. She wasn't approaching Mark as someone seeking validation. She was demonstrating the transformed version of herself, someone fully capable of voicing her truth. The moment he walked through the door, Sally felt the traditional comfort of their routine. But in that comfort lurked the potential for chaos. He flashed her a smile, unaware of the tumultuous storm brewing within her. "Hey, everything okay?" Mark asked, dropping his bag by the door. "It's time to talk," she blurted out. The words rushed from her, gaining speed as they tumbled into the space between them. His brow furrowed, curiosity interwoven with concern. "About?" His gaze held hers steadily, and she sensed a wave of hesitance, the remnants of the past they both had relied on. "I want to create a mural, a family project, and I need your support to make this happen." The gravity of her words hung thickly in the air. "A mural?" he repeated incredulously, arching an eyebrow. She could see the gears turning in his mind, processing the significance behind something that felt, to him, frivolous. "It symbolizes more than art, Mark. It's about us, our stories and our growth," she pressed, her voice steady. "Growth?" he echoed, and it stung sharper than she anticipated. "Yes, growth. Not just mine, but for everyone." She stepped forward, willing herself to push against his skepticism, to fight for a future unshackled by tradition. "You know, I've felt trapped for years under everyone's expectations. This project would let us collaborate, promoting openness instead of the usual judgment." Mark's hands flexed at his sides, the struggle to understand etched on his face. "But what's wrong with how things are? Why turn everything upside down?" His response struck her like a blow. The systemic comfort she had long sought now felt unbearably suffocating. "Because how things are hasn't worked for me. I want to uncover my voice, to cultivate genuine connections, to initiate dialogues among us. This is a chance for us to reshape our family narrative." The uncertainty in his gaze deepened as he processed her plea. He looked away, battling inner turmoil, swirling doubts melding with the burgeoning seed of understanding. "What if this just complicates things? Are you sure this is the right path?" Vulnerability threatened to overwhelm her, but in that moment, she took a deep breath, steadying herself against the tides of fear. "I know I am risking the familiar, but that's where growth thrives, Mark. I'm all in for this. Are you with me? Or are you going to let this slip away like every other dream I've buried?" His silence clawed at her, and she felt the pressure of desperation ignite within. Would he see this for what it was, a pivotal moment that could shatter or strengthen their foundation? As he shifted his weight, the clarity of his thoughts started to emerge. Would he embrace change, or would he cling to the past that felt comfortable? She was fighting against a wall of history, but perhaps there lay a chink in its armor. She could sense it flickering within him. "I need to think," he finally said, and the words hung between them like a frail thread, fragile yet resolute. The fight within her surged, urging her to push further, but she held back, letting the silence stretch into an uneasy truce. As Mark retreated into thought, Sally watched him closely, understanding that this confrontation had only begun to chip away at their past. Now, the battle for his support loomed ahead, and the mural remained a poignant reminder of their shared yet unspoken struggles. Would Mark ultimately pull her back towards stasis, or propel them towards a future of honesty? The question lingered in her mind, pregnant with possibility. But there was also a stirring discontent within her that hinted this discussion was just a precursor to deeper conversations lurking near the horizon, waiting to be unmasked. As she prepared to embrace whatever came next, her heart raced with uncertainty. What would happen when others joined their unfolding narrative? Sally stared at Mark as he settled into the couch, rubbing the back of his neck in deep contemplation. The room, once bursting with conversation, was now suffused with an uncomfortable stillness, the remnants of her bold declaration hanging between them like a specter. She could sense his internal struggle, yet the silence was suffocating, amplifying her own hesitations and fears. Could she bear to stand alone in this desire for change? She felt the weight of generations pressing down on her shoulders, voices echoing the warning to stay within the confines of the familiar. but the flame of her conviction flickered defiantly within her, as though urging her to act, to solidify this newfound resolve. After several agonizing moments, Mark shifted his gaze, and she caught the glint of something igniting within him. "You really believe this mural can bring us closer?" he finally ventured, his voice subdued, yet tinged with an unwilling curiosity that raised her hopes slightly. "It has to, Mark. It's an opportunity to communicate our experiences, our struggles, our joys, everything that makes us who we are," she replied, her passion spilling over as she leaned closer, desperate for him to delve deeper alongside her. "What if it goes wrong? What if it just creates more tension?" he countered, frowning. She hesitated. The truth of his words weighed heavily. Was she really prepared for potential fallout? The tension already exists. We just don't acknowledge it. By expressing ourselves through this mural, we can confront it, she asserted. She searched his face for signs of receptiveness, her heart pounding as the moment stretched taut. Mark considered her words, furrowing his brow. "Have you thought about what others would say? Our families won't understand this." There it was, the looming shadow of external judgment attempting to stifle her vision once more. "Maybe that's the key, though? Maybe we need to challenge the narratives they've set for us," she interjected, her apprehension turning into defiance. "What if we stopped letting fear dictate our choices? What good has that done for us?" His expression softened slightly, and she took a deep breath, knowing she needed to strike while the iron was hot. "This isn't just for me, Mark. I want you involved too. You paint, and you have an incredible way with colors. This is a chance for you to express what you've felt but never said." Her words hung in the air, potent with truth and possibility. Mark was an artist in his own right, his drafts hiding away in the corners of the home, dreams shelved for practicality. She wanted him to breathe life into those unspoken aspirations. At that moment, she recalled her own years of stifled creativity, the gnawing frustration of feeling caged within the confines of societal norms. She couldn't bear to let him drift any longer. "Imagine it, Mark. A mural that speaks our truth, that invites every layer of our stories to unfold. It doesn't have to be about what tradition dictates. It can be a tapestry of our individual journeys knotted together into something beautiful," she challenged, her eyes shining at the thought of this collaborative venture turning from concept to reality. For a heartbeat, she felt hope seep back into her chest, mingled with the anticipation of marking a transformative path together. But Mark remained silent, absorbed in her vision, yet wrestling against conventional fears. His face conveyed a conflict that demanded resolution, a decision tipping the scales between the comforting blanket of their past and the uncharted territory of their future. "What I'm asking is to build something new, something reflecting who we truly are. But it requires trust and courage," she finally said, her voice unraveling around them. As understanding began to settle in his eyes, she wondered if this would pave the way for not just the mural, but for healing convoluted ties that had long shackled them. Yet, as she watched him process her fervent plea, an unsettling question nudged at her mind. Would this moment of potential evolve into empowerment or be crushed under societal expectation? Before either could voice a response, heavy footsteps echoed in the hall, signaling the arrival of their children. The door swung open wide, bringing with it the volatile energy of youth and uncertainty. Sally's heart raced anew. The chance for revelation teetered just out of reach. Could their upcoming conversation with the kids unravel deeper truths or further entangle them in a web of reluctance? The air shifted with the collision of their past and the crumbling defenses propping it up. As what loomed within the next moments approached, she couldn't help but wonder, would this be the beginnings of freedom? Or would it all collapse, leaving her back at the starting line? Sally barely had time to brace herself before their children, Aaron and Lila, burst into the living room. The chaotic energy they brought filled the space, and it felt like a sudden storm had uprooted everything she'd just fought to establish. Lila, with her quirky confidence, flopped onto the couch beside Mark, while Aaron sprawled on the floor, seemingly oblivious to the weight of the moment hanging just beyond them. "Can we get pizza for dinner?" Lila asked in a sing-song voice, her vibrant energy swaying through the room like a refreshing breeze, but Sally was still anchored in her tumult. "Sure, why not?" Mark replied absent-mindedly, his attention still lingering on Sally. She could see that their children's enthusiasm was a welcome distraction, yet part of her longed to delve back into their previous conversation. "Actually, we need to talk about something important first," Sally interjected, her heart racing as she realized she was poised to share the most vulnerable part of her vision with her family. Just as she summoned the words, however, Lila chimed in again. "Mom, you've been acting all weird lately. Is everything okay?" It was innocent curiosity, but it stung like an oddly sharp reminder of how little she had truly shared with them. Sally's thoughts twisted within her with the pressure of impending revelation. How could she explain the growing desire for change without igniting uncertainty or even fear among her children? She felt the pulse of doubt drum in her chest, driving her to make a choice. "Actually, I want to talk about a project Mark and I are considering. It's about a mural," she ventured, her voice steady despite the trepidation swirling inside. "Like a giant painting?" Aaron's eyes widened, and curiosity captured his attention. The potential for excitement of their mother's unforeseen venture slighted her worries, the innocence of their youth beckoning at new horizons. "Yes, something that tells our family story," Sally continued, emboldened by their interest. She noticed Mark inch closer, sensing his support, but still wary of how she might weave together their dreams with the expectations surrounding them. "What kind of story?" Lila asked, her brow furrowing in thought. "The story of us, of being different, of our individual experiences and how they connect," Sally replied, her pulse quickening as she stood on shaky new ground, open to their interpretations and perceptions. Mark caught her eye, a flicker of admiration glinting within it that lit a small torch of hope in her heart. "That sounds cool," Aaron said, his youthful enthusiasm shining through. But Sally noticed a flicker of uncertainty dancing in Lila's expression. She had always been sensitive to differences and societal judgments. "What if people don't understand it?" Lila asked, biting her lip, a habit that felt like a magnifying glass on her anxieties. "I mean, that's possible," Sally said, honesty spilling from her lips. "But I think it's also about breaking those barriers. If we don't express who we really are, we risk losing our voice entirely. Isn't that worth exploring?" The moment felt fraught with tension, as if she were walking a tightrope, centered between fear and empowerment. Would they rally behind her in this venture, or recoil at the unfamiliar? It was a healthy risk, but one that left the hunger for acceptance unsated, a pit growing within her. "A mural might be a lot of work," Aaron mused, scratching his head, the innocent practicality exemplifying childhood logic. Sally sighed, sensing the truth couching another difficult conversation. She knew family's acceptance could be as burdensome as it was liberating. For it to work, it'll require all of us. It'll be a journey. "But what if it exposes things we're not ready to handle?" Lila pressed, laced with genuine concern, causing the ground under Sally's purpose to quake. Just then, it was as if the room shrank, leaving her alone in a vast expanse of existential questioning. Could this venture truly become a beacon of understanding, or would it tilt everything into chaos? The familiar uneasiness of uncertainty echoed louder. As the children's eyes searched for her guidance, Sally realized it was more than just a mural. It was the foundation of her family's collective future, a potentially liberating endeavor hung like a ripe fruit, but equally threatened by the weight of judgment and fear. With the truth of her aspirations colliding against the reality of their fears, she understood. The stakes were far greater than she had anticipated. As she prepared to voice her next words, a silence fell thick as tangible fog, leaving her teetering between determination and apprehension. What awaited them on this uncertain yet potentially fulfilling journey? Would it bring them closer, or would the shadows of societal expectations suffocate their authenticity in the very moment they dared to reach for their truths? Sally could feel the weight of her family's gaze upon her, a blend of expectation, curiosity, and apprehension. It was this very moment that would define the trajectory of not just the mural, but their entire family dynamic. The silence wrapped around her, almost stifling, nudging her toward decisions she hadn't anticipated needing to make so soon. A faint flutter of resolve ignited in her chest. "You know, every important story has its struggles," she began, her voice more confident than she felt. "Our story is no different. If we're going to create something that resonates, we have to dig deep, to embrace our differences, even when it's uncomfortable. A story where everyone shines must come from truth," Mark added, leaning in, hoping to blend support with subtle encouragement. Sally could sense his quiet admiration, but also the unspoken desire for them all to shoulder this undertaking together. Lila's brow furrowed deeper, her voice more timid. "But what if the truth hurts? What if it opens up wounds we aren't ready to face?" Sally inhaled sharply, grappling with Lila's concerns. How could her ambition for authenticity feel so daunting and yet so vital? Navigating through her own vulnerabilities, she realized she hadn't merely been preparing to share a project. She was inviting them into a dialogue about truths they'd so carefully hidden. "I believe we can handle it, Lila," she replied earnestly. "Maybe facing those fears together is what makes us stronger. Isn't that what family is about? Supporting each other when it feels tough?" "What if people judge us?" Aaron interjected, his innocence not masking a real fear that resonated deep within the family's collective psyche. "But shouldn't we care more about how we feel than how others perceive us?" Sally pressed gently, surprised at her own conviction. "If we're honest in our expression, it could pave the way for others to feel safer doing the same. Just like our story deserves to be told, so does everyone else's." She noticed a flicker of understanding in Lila's eyes, a softening that hinted at the possibility of acceptance. It ignited within Sally an urge, a desire to articulate the very essence of this journey. It would not only articulate their experiences, but it would also form an intimate tapestry of shared truths. "I think we should be brave and give it a shot," Sally concluded, a little surprised at her own proclamation. Was the fear ebbing away, ceding ground to a newfound determination? What began as a mere family project was morphing into an opportunity for connection and healing, a chance to redefine how they perceived their truths. Mark put a reassuring hand on her back, a tangible connection reminding her they were in this together. Yet, she also felt apprehensive. What if this brave venture unraveling the complexities of their lives only led them to harsher judgments? "Okay, so where do we start?" Lila asked tentatively, but her voice now wavered with a spark of excitement. Sally felt the atmosphere shift, thick and alive with anticipation. "Let's start by sharing stories. Each of us can contribute pieces of what our truth looks like, from our perspectives. Then, we'll find a way to weave them together in a way that feels right." "What will I say?" Aaron asked quietly, his earnestness cutting through the weight of the moment. A part of Sally recognized her son's search for validation. How could she encourage him while also confronting her own fears? She pondered how to address their discomfort and draw out wisdom and insight. "We'll find the words together, and those words will guide us," Sally reassured him, the reality washing over her. This was indeed a multifaceted journey ahead, riddled with challenge, yet buoyed by potential. As they set about to draft their individual experiences, Sally realized something fundamental within her had shifted. She felt more grounded, faced with the genuine exploration of her family's story instead of simply imposing her vision. It was truly collective now, their stakes intertwined. However, with a surge of excitement came the stirring of shadows. Moments of her past, choices made, and secrets buried began to surface. Suddenly, a chill ran through her. What untold parts of their lives would emerge in this vulnerable act? Could she really face them herself? Just as she considered this, an unexpected knock echoed through the house, sharp and abrupt, pulling their focus. Who could it be? As Sally momentarily grappled with the intertwining threads of fear, opportunity, and revelation, she understood her journey with her family was only beginning. But what new layers would this knock unveil? Sally's heart raced at the sudden knock, every fiber of her being taut with anticipation. Mark exchanged a puzzled glance with her, the family gathered around the living room now transformed into a collective unit of unspoken tension. With each moment that ticked by, the knock echoed like a countdown, and her mind spiraled with possibilities. "What do you think it is?" Aaron ventured, his wide eyes darting toward the door. "I don't know." Sally's voice strained with uncertainty. What if this was the moment when everything they were about to confront, their hidden truths, would be overshadowed by an external upheaval? Before she could muster the fortitude to respond, Lila shifted nervously, standing abruptly. "I'll go see," she said, taking a step toward the door. Sally wanted to call her back, to tell her it was okay to stay in this uncertain space. But she also wanted Lila to be brave, to step into whatever this moment prepared them for. As Lila opened the door, a gust of wind swept through the room, bringing with it a chill that pricked Sally's skin. Standing on the threshold was a figure they hadn't expected, Sally's old friend, Claire, with an unreadable expression on her face. Hadn't they lost touch for years? What would she be doing here now? "Hey, Sally," Claire spoke, her voice imbued with an earnestness that momentarily eclipsed the electric tension in the room. "I know it's been a long time, but I thought it was time to finally talk." All eyes turned toward Sally, whose mind raced. Claire's arrival, an unexpected interruption, felt both like a blessing and a burden. Memories of their past together, colored with laughter and secrets, now swirled in her mind. But deep inside, Sally sensed this was more than a mere reunion. It was a reckoning. "What do you mean?" Sally managed to ask, cautious yet curious. "I have something to share," Claire said, her gaze unwavering. "Something I should have said long ago. It's about your family, and the truth that I've been holding on to for years." Sally felt the blood drain from her face. Could it be that this was the catalyst they needed, or an unearthing of something far worse? Claire began to explain, her voice steady yet laden with emotion. Every word she spoke seemed to descend like a curtain between the past and present, illuminating shadows that had never found the light. "Do you remember that summer before you went off to college?" Claire continued, letting the memories spill over. As Sally listened, she felt a whirlwind of emotions, nostalgia, anger, curiosity, each rising like a tide. Footsteps began to weave around her as the family shifted, leaning in closer, absorbed in the conversation unfolding before them. Mark's presence beside her felt grounding in the midst of this storm of revelation. Suddenly, the mural project felt minuscule compared to the truth Claire was preparing to untangle. "What happened?" Sally whispered, though she feared hearing the answer. "There were things you didn't know, Sally, choices made by your parents that have stayed in the dark, choices that shaped how you see family, how you perceive love and honesty." Each word sliced through the air, hitting core beliefs Sally had held tightly to. Beliefs she had been so eager to overlay on their mural of shared truths. Confusion gnawed at her heart. The potent mixture of dread and anticipation simmered in her stomach, urging her to confront these revelations rather than shy away. Would this throw their careful plans into chaos? Or would it serve as the opening they all needed? As Claire's voice faltered, but then regained strength, Sally's determination rose to meet the challenge. They had begun this journey for authenticity, and now they faced a true test of what it meant to embrace one another's truths. But with a past so thick with secrets, what ramifications would this revelation bring to Sally and her family? Would it tighten their bonds or threaten to unravel them? Tension surged as the next moment hung precariously, sealing their fates to the choice of confronting a legacy of hidden truths. Would she dare to face what her friend had to say? Just then, Claire leaned in closer, her next words set to change everything Sally thought she knew. Sally's breath caught as Claire leaned closer, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. The gravity of the moment bore down on her, reality blurring around the edges as she prepared for the inevitable shift in her understanding of family. "It's about your mother," Claire said softly, each syllable laden with a weight that reverberated throughout the room. Sally's mind raced. She felt the pull of every unspoken word, every repressed emotion, gathering into a tempest within her. "What about her?" The tremor in her voice betrayed her composure. "You remember the arguments, the ways things just shifted between your parents?" "There's more to it than you know," Claire urged, her voice steady yet caring. "It's about a choice your mother made, a choice that changed everything." Mark shifted beside her, his hand lightly brushing against hers, a silent gesture of support. It was the grounding she needed as each revelation shook her core. She felt disconnected from the solidity of her memories as Claire continued, unraveling details Sally never comprehended. "There was someone else," Claire revealed, her voice dropping as though the very air might alter if she spoke too loudly. "Your mom. She had a relationship before she met your dad." Sally flinched as if physically struck. The pieces of her family tapestry began to warp, the fabric of her understanding fraying. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" she demanded, anger bubbling up inside her chest. "Why hold on to this for so long?" "It wasn't only your mom's secret," Claire replied, meeting Sally's gaze with unwavering honesty. "It was a protection, maybe a misguided one, but they thought you were better off without knowing. They didn't want to turn you against them. They loved you too much for that." The mention of love ignited a flicker of doubt. Had her childhood been built on a foundation of lies? Sally's vision blurred as she grappled with the revelation of her mother's suppressed truth. It felt like a betrayal, yet deep down she understood the instinct to shield. "How can I ever—" Sally began, but the words faltered. Could she really reconcile the mother she had revered with this unsettling new reality? Claire, sensing the storm inside Sally, pressed on. "You have the chance to talk to her, to ask her. You deserve to hear her side. None of this defines your family. It adds dimension to it. But you need to take that step." The room fell silent, save for the muffled ticking of the clock echoing in the background. Each second dragged on, heavy with unresolved emotion and unuttered questions. Sally felt a swell of emotions, uncertainty, a longing for clarity, an urgent desire to bridge the gap between past pains and present truths. Faced with her choices, the path forward suddenly appeared both daunting and vital. She could choose to retreat into the safety of ignorance or confront the labyrinth of her family's history. It was a choice that trembled at the edges of her consciousness, the stakes rising exponentially as the truth hung in the air, waiting to be seized. Sally took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment, and made a silent vow to herself. She would confront her mother. She owed it to herself and to the collective uncertainty now binding her family together. But how would she even begin? As the tension in the room thickened, one thought persisted. The road to understanding would demand more than courage. It would require her to unearth her own buried truths, even those she had long avoided. It was the beginning of an unraveling, one that would lead to uncharted territory of reconciliation and growth, a journey she couldn't fully comprehend yet. Claire's last words resonated within her mind, echoing the urgency of her situation. "You'll need to be ready, Sally. The moment you confront her will define your relationship for years to come." Sally squared her shoulders, determination flickering in her gut. The time had come to face her mother, but the echoes of her past still loomed ahead like shadows, ready to confront her in ways she could never foresee. Would she find strength in the truths, or would the revelations take her deeper into a realm of chaos instead? With a heart full of conflicting emotions, she prepared herself for the next step. Anxiety coursed through her as she realized these truths were only the beginning, and the real confrontation had yet to come. The day of the family reunion arrived, heavy with anticipation and unspoken history. Sally stood before the mirror, the whims of her now shortened hair framing a face marked by determination and resolve. Gone was the woman shackled by expectation. In her place stood a woman embracing the unknown, ready to reclaim her narrative. The transformation within her had manifested not just in her appearance, but in the realm of her spirit. Mark joined her in the hallway, his supportive presence a stabilizing force as they prepared to descend into the chaos of family dynamics. They exchanged a glance, unspoken understanding passing between them. Both were committed to fostering an environment where each member could express their truth. The mural project, initially a self-serving pursuit for personal expression, had blossomed into something far greater, a vehicle to deepen familial bonds and connect through vulnerability. As they walked into the large family gathering, Sally felt the weight of scrutiny bearing down. But instead of retreating, she embraced it. The air hummed with the laughter and chatter of family, an array of emotions swirling like confetti in the air. Friends, cousins, aunts, and uncles gathered, all adorned in the same superficial veneer of politeness. It was exactly that superficiality that Sally sought to dismantle. "Are you ready?" Mark whispered, a flicker of anxiety visible in his eyes. He sensed the moment when she would break through that veneer hanging over them all. "I am." The affirmation rolled off her tongue with an unexpected strength. This would be the day she shared her vision. "Family!" Sally called, garnering attention from across the room. Conversations dwindled, and the air shifted. Family heads turned, curiosity threading through the gathering. With her heart racing in tandem with the pulse of the room, she continued. "Mark and I have been working on an idea that symbolizes us, a mural project that echoes our stories and expressions of who we are as individuals and as a family." A mix of responses cascaded through the crowd. Some nodded in acceptance, others raised eyebrows, unsure of how to respond. But Sally pressed on, clarity taking hold. "I know we all have experiences that shape us, some joyful and others painful. I believe it's time we embrace them, confront our truths, and transform those truths into something beautiful." A murmur rippled through the group, but it was her daughter, Lila, who stepped forward, unwavering in her belief. "Mom's been working hard to get us all to be honest about who we are," she declared fiercely, her youthful enthusiasm rekindling Sally's confidence. The family members exchanged glances, weighing the implications of vulnerability. Sally felt a rush of anticipation, hoping for their acceptance of her newfound approach. Encouraged, she invited them one by one to share their thoughts. As each family member spoke, fragments of hilarity and heartache, of individual triumphs and failures, the mood of the room shifted. Secrets which had sought shelter began to surface. The weight of their collective histories dampening the air was slowly lifting. Amidst the stories, an unexpected voice cut through. Her mother, Rebecca, who had been a spectator until now. "I have something to say about the past, too," she admitted, courage igniting in her gaze. "You're right, Sally. I've held on to secrets that have dictated the fabric of our family. It's time I unravel that thread." Sally's heart raced as her mother began to share her truth, the same one Claire had mentioned, revealing the relationship that lay concealed in shadow. Each word was a thread drawn taut, stitching together a partnership woven through love and heartbreak, fear and acceptance. It was a moment of raw sincerity, and in that acknowledgement, Sally felt an unexpected wave of relief wash over her. As Rebecca finished her heartfelt confession, the energy in the room shifted yet again. The family, freed from the weight of her hidden truth, began to open their own hearts without the chains of judgment. One by one, stories emerged. The barriers of vulnerability fell as different generations contributed to the tapestry forming before them. Sally watched with careful attention, her eyes widening as her relatives shed the echoes of their past. The panels of their family story began taking shape, not in paint on a canvas, but through the articulation of heart, spirit, and shared experience. In that moment, as joy intermingled with sorrow, Sally felt a profound satisfaction course through her. She accomplished far more than any mural could encapsulate. She stirred the depths of her family's essence, carving a bridge across years of unspoken narratives. Her role evolved beyond mere facilitator. She became an architect of connection. As the evening wore on, laughter returned, but it was now laced with authenticity. Reunited in their dimensional stories, the family flourished in awareness, allowing their individual complexities to coexist and intermingle. Sally found herself caught in a whirlwind of conversations, the echo of what once divided them replaced by a newfound unity. It was during this embrace of familial storytelling that she felt not just proud of what they'd achieved, but deservedly seen as well, finally recognized as the whole person she had long strived to be. The mural, envisioned as a physical representation of their legacy, instead transformed into an emotional sect. Sally had emerged as a formidable force, a woman resolute in her truth, respected and valued for her voice. As she glanced at Mark, who beamed with pride, she knew they'd both conquered self-doubt together. They'd transformed their experience from fear into empowerment, redefining the meaning of family in a single evening. Sally stepped back, witnessing her family revel in interconnectedness, a harvest of authentic celebration. She felt deeply grateful, not only for the reunion itself, but for the profound breakthrough she'd achieved. She had taken a step toward true growth, embracing authenticity and facilitating open exchanges. No longer held captive by the chains of expectation, she was now pivoting from the fragility of the past into the solidity of the present. She had emerged whole and strong, ready to not only tell her story, but to encourage others to share theirs. And as she watched laughter intertwine with the embrace of shared experiences echoing throughout the room, a sense of accomplishment took root in her spirit. This was not merely a family reunion, it was a crossroad of their transformation. This was her fulfilled dream, the confident woman ready to soar, finally free to express her truth to the world. There was no turning back now. This was the moment where she seized her story and offered it to the future, uninterrupted and resplendent. You need to subscribe now to support this channel and not miss another exclusive emotional journey. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm's fire. Every click matters. Comment your reactions and theories about Sally's transformation and the family dynamics we explored. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who can benefit from this powerful conclusion and reclaim their stories too. Let's spread authenticity.